Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipsters Podcast, where I interview founders and co founders, entrepreneurs and artists, executives and stay at home hipsters in crypto and blockchain around the world. And I have an amazing podcast for you today. Let's get to it. And today I have an amazing guest. His name is Romain Nouzareth. He is the co-founder of the Canada Computational Unlimited, CCU. Romain, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamil. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. So let's get started.
Awesome. So I start off with the same question for everyone. It is, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you do now?
Sure. So my background originally is law. I studied law in France, in Paris. As you can hear with my accent, I'm French. I've been naturalized American, so more than 6 years ago, because I've moved in New York in 2004. Usually, I really started as an entrepreneur when I was 20 years old. I went to New York in 1995 to visit my brother, and I discovered the internet. So I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I want to work in that field. Let's stop my studies. So I dropped off my University of Law in Paris, and I started my first company, which was a digital creative agency. So we were doing technology, consulting, and creative for the biggest brands in France. And it's a company that I've sold in 2009 to one of the leaders at the time. So originally, to answer your original question, I was not destined to do technology, but I really decided to change course and be involved with this new land of digital world. So from there, from this company that we sold before, I started it with my brother. We've been working together for the past 25 years. He's also a co-founder of CCU.ai, which is our mining and Bitcoin mining facility that we will discuss in a few minutes. But from this company in 1995 that we created, sold in 1999, we then created another company also in the digital space, but we were doing a digital platform for selling games to download. So we were a middleman between people who have an audience like MSN, Yahoo, AOL, and people who have content, mainly game publishers and game developers. It was a company that was working very well in Europe. I developed it also in Asia and in the US. And that's how we discovered a new model for playing games that was mainly started in Asia. Which was the free-to-play and pay for value or microtransactions in games. So we decided to move also into that area. And we started a website called cafe.com, where we would publish our own games with microtransaction. And it was also the time when Facebook was started to open their platform. So I'm talking 2007. And then we decided to experiment on the virality on the Facebook platform, and we made a game that was an instant success. It was a simple game mechanic of sending cool points between people. It was called eSchool, and the company with these games really became like one of the biggest franchise in Europe. And with my brother in 2009, we decided to create another game studio because we went from developing our own websites and selling games to making our own games, and then being like a developer and publisher ourselves. So we made a game called Song Pop, which was also very big. It's a game for iOS and Android with more than 130 million downloads. Mark Zuckerberg said on his wall when it was released that it was one of his favorite games. So we had lots of traffic very quickly at the time. And Matthew is still working for the company that he sold to Vivendi Gameloft. And myself, I've been working on the mining part since 2017. And that's what I've been focusing on, and it's a very interesting subject.
Great. So let's talk about that mining. Let's talk about some of that. So first thing is, there's a lot of, let's just set the background first. There's a lot of discussion in the media and in traditional financial world, the non-crypto world, right? That Bitcoin has a harmful environmental impact. What are actually some of the, and as you've been mining for 4 years, so what's some of the actual, environmental harms, and how do we mitigate them?
Well, I mean, people are talking about energy consumption of Bitcoin mining, and they are saying that the energy used for mining Bitcoin is not clean. But we need to look at a high level on this subject. The first thing that is important to take into account is that only 0.1% of the consumption energy of the world is used by Bitcoin. So it's really negligible. We are not producing anything that is bad for the environment, in a sense that it's very negligible to everything else that is currently used or that is currently produced for using energy. And it's true that it's a subject that is coming back every year. Bitcoin is polluting. So the first thing that is important to understand, I think, on this subject is that the energy use of Bitcoin mining is not a bug, it's a feature. It's a feature because it is what secures the network, what secures our transaction. And we need to use, for the proof of work, we need to use this energy to make sure that everything is done accordingly to what we want to do, with a consensus created by the Bitcoin miners. Now, when you look at the specific numbers, and because it's an important subject, I believe environment in general is very important. And we see with what's happening in the world that we need to take it seriously. And we miners, we want to take it seriously. So we've had many trials and organizations trying to come to the market with specific data that could be used in that specific subject. And the first one which we joined was the Bitcoin Mining Council that was created by Michael Saylor, or originated by Michael Saylor. And the idea was to regroup the biggest miners in the world, mainly from North America so far, and to get data on really how much energy do we use and where is this energy coming from. Because in this topic, I think the most important thing is to ask ourselves, where is the energy coming from, and not how much energy are we using. And when you look precisely in the data, we've been able to show, mainly with the first miners grouping ourselves into the Bitcoin Mining Council, we've been able to show that more than 56% of our energy is renewable. And even more if you look at the miners who were participating only. So not only we use way less energy than any other energy source or any other use made by users. For example, there is one thing that is interesting. What is using more energy than a small country? We usually make a comparison like, oh yeah, mining is using more than Sweden or using more than Iceland or something like this. But Christmas lights are also using more energy than a small country, and nobody's thinking about stopping the Christmas light. So in that respect, I think the Bitcoin Mining Council has been able to show data that were really proving that Bitcoin mining can be done responsibly. And the other part to take into account is that mining with renewable energy is inevitable in my sense. Why? Because it will be the energy source that will be the least expensive. And we miners, we need to take that into account when we develop our infrastructure, because we are building for the long term. We know what is happening with the next halving. It's happening in 3 years now. It's happening every 4 years, as you know, in the Bitcoin blockchain. But the next halving is probably in around the next 3 years. And as you know, also in mining, most of our costs are electricity based. So you need to pay electricity at the least price possible. And in order to continue mining and not capitulate, which is our worst enemy for Bitcoin miners, we don't want to capitulate. We need to have access to cheap energy, and renewable is fitting this.
Great. So you say it's a feature, and I know from prior conversations that centralized, data centers like Amazon or Alibaba take up more energy usage than Bitcoin. So if I say, and I saw this posted on Twitter, what if the real conversation is one of paternalism versus sovereignty? How does Bitcoin help data users, the world, create a more sovereign environment?
It's true that if you look and if you compare how the Bitcoin network is working, and if you compare it with the traditional financing, for example, the banking system, we are using way less energy. And the decentralization that is coming from the protocol of the Bitcoin is providing greater advancement for our society. And I believe that if we move toward the decentralization even more, which I think the world is going anyway. I mean, we are going into we are living in this digital world since the early 90s or late 90s, and it's only growing and growing. And in the next years and decades, we will need to have protocol to manage our digital transaction, financial or not. We see now, and we will talk about NFTs and other type of protocol with smart contract, how this digitalization, I would say, of the world is happening. And I think at the bottom line, the most important part of the Bitcoin is that it gives us back our money, the power to manage our own money. The same way that I believe the state and religion should be dissociated, I think finance and state should be dissociated, and with Bitcoin we get access to that. So all in all, we are pushing, and I'm a big believer, obviously, in the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin future, and for other protocol also.
So I threw that question in there. That wasn't one of my initial questions for you, but it was important to lead to the next question. Because I'm 50. I grew up in the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, right? And nuclear management, right, was paternalized. It was held by at the country level, and now we have fusion mining, right, which is nuclear energy mining at the decentralized sovereign level. So, I wanted to ask you, what is fusion mining? How does it work, and what are the benefits?
Well, fusion mining is nothing else than mining with nuclear energy. So today, for example, at CCU.ai, we are using hydroelectricity. So it means that our energy is coming from water. So virtually, we could say we make Bitcoin with water. We transform water to Bitcoin. But in the world, as you know, there are other sources of energy, and nuclear is one of it. And when you mine with nuclear energy, you're just getting your power from a nuclear source. This source is interesting because it's, some people will argue that it's not green, but it's not producing any carbon emission. It could be stable enough in lots of parts of the world to make sure that we can continue going and use our energy. For example, I think Germany made the choice to remove the nuclear energy from their grid, but now they need to buy energy from the neighbors, and it's mainly coming from coal and oil. So environmentally, it was not really a great choice. And it's true that in the mining industry, we are looking for new sources of energy in order to grow our operation. Because we make Bitcoin with our energy. Basically, we transform power into Bitcoin by way of our miners, our mining rigs. But in order to go, we need to find new sources of energy, and nuclear is an interesting one. Why? Because it's available, it's produced at scale. But what is important to keep in mind in that subject is what is the price per kilowatt hour that you will pay from your energy source. And today, for example, France, which is a country that is using lots of nuclear energy, the energy is too expensive to be able to mine Bitcoin with the price given by EDF, which is Électricité de France. It's around, I think, 12 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour. But and what we pay in Quebec, where we are with our hydropower, is around like 3.7 cents a kilowatt hour. So the difference is really important. So nuclear mining, I believe, will continue existing and growing, but it all depends on how much you're willing to pay for your electricity. But at the end, in the same way than in the environmental debate, we need to look at the energy source. This is the same question for nuclear energy. If your source is from nuclear and how much you pay for your kilowatt hour, this is what will make you profitable or not when you mine Bitcoin. One quick story that I was reading the other day, which is interesting. It's a new type of nuclear reactors that are being developed, which are mini reactors. It's around like 200 megawatt, 300 megawatt nuclear reactors that are being built, I think mainly in Ukraine and in Russia. So we could imagine in the future that people will want to buy or to develop their own nuclear reactor to mine Bitcoin or to start mining operation. Now I'm not sure exactly where we could put a nuclear reactor. For example, in Quebec, I'm sure that if I buy a land, if I say, hey guys, I'm going to build a 200 megawatt nuclear reactor, they will not let me. However, in other parts of the world, who knows? We will see. But I think we are still far from it. We are still, it's still probably like 5-10 years before we can see this kind of a nuclear reactor being built specifically for mining operation. In the meantime, nuclear reactors are producing lots of energy, and for us miners, it makes sense to be closer to the energy source because the distribution and the transmission in the electricity will cost less if you can be closer to the energy source. It's the case for nuclear plants, as is the case for hydroelectricity when we want to be closer to dam, for example. If we want to mine Bitcoin.
Great. So that's fascinating, first of all, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things play out because we know that the Bitcoin blockchain is unbreakable, near almost impossible to break, right?
Not almost. I mean, I'm sorry, but 100%. I mean, the Bitcoin has never been broken, and just because of this feature of power that we need to use to do the proof of work, that is the beauty and the mathematical beauty of the Bitcoin. Yeah, but I think it's really important to state that Bitcoin has never been hacked. There was a small code issue that Satoshi Nakamoto fixed himself in 2009. But since then, it has never been hacked, and it will not be hacked. And people sometimes do the amalgamation between hacks that we see, sometimes on platform or exchanges, and they say, "Oh my God, 600 million has been stolen on this platform. It means that Bitcoin is not secure." But it's not true. You can be hacked off your Bitcoin if you are keeping them on an exchange, and if this exchange gets hacked, yes, you lose your Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin blockchain and the process, we, the miners, are writing in the blocks every 10 minutes to add new transactions and to add the new block in the blockchain has not been hacked and will not be hacked. And this is why I believe the Bitcoin will continue being the top protocol in the blockchain.
Great. I agree with you. And you did mention cost, right? Kilowatt per hour. And so that goes along with speed, right? So in terms of speed, how has been the implementation and impact of the implementation of the Lightning network worked out thus far?
So Lightning Network is a very interesting development around the Bitcoin. Just to give a quick update, I mean, not update, but the way it works is that you open a channel and you will open, like it's a layer 2, kind of a side chain, and you open a channel And once your channel is open between 2 or more than 2 people, you can have multiple transactions for almost no fee, because it works with this open tab, like it's an open tab in a bar, we could say. And at the end of the night, you just close your tab, and then you will rewrite in the main chain what happened during the Lightning Network. So what we've been seeing and looking at is that you have more nodes and channels being created every day, and more Bitcoin being used as this Lightning Network, more Bitcoin being put in use into the Lightning Network, allowing more transaction. And what I think is really interesting in that part is that when you start using your Bitcoin via the Lightning Network, you are entering into some kind of a circular economy. And this circular economy means that you are spending Bitcoin, but you are also receiving Bitcoin. Or in that case, we can talk about sats. So you are paying stuff in sats, but you're receiving stuff in sats. And in that case, because you are always sending, receiving, you don't feel like you're using your Bitcoin. We all have the pizza in mind, you know, like spending 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizza. You're like, oh my God, should I spend my Bitcoin? But when you start using the Lightning Network this way, it's really interesting, because you can really foresee the usage that can be made of the Lightning Network. And this is something, by the way, we have been looking at very much, and we will probably release some interesting development in that part. But one thing that is interesting, maybe for people to test, it's an application. It's a chat application that is called Sphinx, SPHINX. And it's a chat application based on the Lightning Network. So basically, you need to participate, you need to put some sats, and you have an anti-spam solution based in the fact that when you chat and when you participate in the chat, you need to send some of your sats, and then you will receive them back. So it's really interesting to be in this circular economy, because you could really see why and how to use Bitcoin in a day-to-day operation via the Lightning Network. So I'm very bullish in that, and I think it will allow us to develop more services DeFi oriented. Obviously, today Ethereum is the most used blockchain for this kind of products. But I believe in Bitcoin we will be able to build interesting use case using the Lightning Network in the future.
Great. So for some of my listeners who don't know what sats are, I think most people do. It's short for Satoshis, right? And
Correct.
It's a denomination of Bitcoin, which is it 1 million Satoshis per Bitcoin?
No, 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin.
100 million.
100 million. And that's really interesting, because when you multiply 100 million by 21 million, which is, as you know, the maximum number of Bitcoins that will be created, you end up into a number that I can't even say. I mean, 21 million multiplied by 100 million, it means that the sats, which is this smallest amount of the Bitcoin, is virtually limitless. I mean, we will be able to exchange and use them, and we will not be limited in coins. People always say that there is only 21 million Bitcoin. It's true, but there is also 21 million multiplied by 100 million Satoshis, which people will be able to exchange on a day-to-day basis. And the key is that you're not spending them. You are spending them sometimes, but you are receiving them on another time. And at the end, you have a balance that could be negative or positive, but you will not feel as if you are spending your Bitcoin or spending like 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas.
So I want to get into that. Satoshis, and the speed element. But I first want to back up, and I want to ask you, in addition to CCU, you are actively building eWorld, right? What is eWorld? How does it work?
So eWorld is a game studio that I developed since 2015, I think, and it's a game that I've made mainly as a developer for Gameloft. And I haven't been really active the past month, because I've been focusing on CCU. So it's a game that I was delivered to Gameloft, and I'm not actively pursuing it at this point. I'm really focusing my mind and my interest and my energy into CCU. We just announced that we are going to be listed on the TSXV, which is the Toronto stock market. So we're going to become a public company. For the past 6 months, it was a lot of work in order to make it work, but we're in the final stage. I mean, we received the pre-approval from the court, we received the pre-approval from the stock market, and we will probably get listed in the coming weeks. So that's really where my focus is. It's true that I'm coming as an entrepreneur. I'm coming from the tech world, from the game world. I've been passionate by the blockchain from a long time. It's really in 2017 that we looked at mining and living in New York. We were wondering with my brother, who's also the co-founder of CCU, we were wondering where to set up shop. And Quebec made sense because Montreal from New York is only 45 minutes by plane. And it's a country that is stable. It has an amazing electricity. Not only it's completely green. We are not using, we're not producing carbon emission. I mean, 97% of the grid in Quebec is coming from hydro. The rest is solar and wind. And it's also rightly priced, as I was telling you before. And it's also a country where the climate is interesting because in the way we manage our miners, we need to be super effective on how to run them, because if you can put the right amount of power at the bottom of your miners and keep them at a certain temperature, in our case for Bitcoin mining, we need to put them 240 volts and keep them around like 22, 25 degrees Celsius. Your miners are going to produce more Bitcoins. They are going to stress less your equipment, your electrical equipment, and they will live longer because they will have a long-term use. So you can make more money in the long run. And Quebec for this and Canada is interesting because we need to cool off the miners, and using the cool from the outside is an important part for us.
Great. So first off, I want to say congratulations.
I'm digressing a little bit from your original question.
That's fine. I want to congratulate you on getting everything running and on the exchange and everything's awesome. And I want to go back to the 100 million sats per Bitcoin, right? Sure. And the fact that you created games, and one of the hot things right now in crypto is NFTs and in-game apps. NFTs on Ethereum and Solana, and in-game apps on Matic, right? And with you have 100 million satoshis, do you think that you'd be able to create Bitcoin and satoshis to be used in games and on NFTs?
Well, it's a very interesting question. It's a question that I've been asked myself for a long time. It's true that we are seeing tremendous successes on different blockchains for NFTs and in-game blockchain. For example, Sandbox is a huge game. They have the same investors and us, and a True Global Venture, who's also investing a lot in NFT, and they're invested in a company called Animoca, who is also working a lot with game and blockchain, which I think is really interesting. But when you look at Bitcoin and Satoshis and NFTs or in-game currencies, I would say that the Bitcoin protocol has not been really created with this in mind, because in order to do this kind of like a contract, you need to do smart contract, which is the innovation that Ethereum brought when it was released. It was to be able to add an executable link to the currency and to the blockchain that was the Ethereum in that case. So for Bitcoin, we could foresee a way to do smart contract. People are trying to develop this kind of operation or this kind of like solution using smart contract. There is a concept called colored coin. And colored coin are basically a way for people to use the block. You can write some information in the block, and you could use this information to retrieve information that will be based on a smart contract. But it's not really made for this. And I would say that in today's world, if I wanted to do NFTs or in-game currencies, I would probably go with another protocol than Bitcoin. However, for the SATs, it's different because if you could open a Lightning Network or channel, a Lightning Network channel in a game and ask people to put their Bitcoin or many to win Bitcoin, that could be changing the game. But today, for NFTs and Ethereum as a token for this, I think it's ERC 720 or 721 or something like this. Which a Bitcoin has not at this point. But I could see a future where people will start using Bitcoin and Sats inside games. We will see.
Great. I earn sats on my Lolly purchases daily. So, I do that every day. Someday I'll have a full Bitcoin. Be great.
Yeah, win sats every day. I mean, stack sats every day. I think it's really one of the best advice you can give people. Even if it's small, go get it. It's not going to be lost.
So I want to tie things together. I have two questions left. This one's, you're living in New York now, and you have people who are on the outskirts of crypto or in crypto. Who do you know who to listen to, how to listen to them, how to get involved, what to believe? What's your best advice to people who are new coming in of what to do?
Well, New York City is de facto an important place for Bitcoin and crypto in general. I mean, not because of our state tax law, because it's very difficult to play and to do Bitcoin stuff in New York. Even like if you want to do loans or this kind of stuff, it's difficult. But because it's a financial capital in the world, you have lots of funds and hedge funds who've been investing and looking at crypto. So you have lots of people like Galaxy, lots of other hedge funds that are now BlackRock is investing in mining, for example. So it's been an interesting area, and we've seen it grow and evolve on the past few years. I would say the best way to find New Yorkers in blockchain in New York, I mean, New Yorkers in New York, that's interesting, but New Yorkers on the blockchain is to go on Twitter and find people who can who will say that they're in New York. We are organizing sometimes some lunch or some gathering, so it's really interesting. Of course, the COVID stopped this a little bit, but now it's going back. Foundry, for example, which is also I mean, they are in different. Foundry is one of the biggest pool in North America, but they have like some people in New York. So it's interesting to follow this crowd. Even so, today in the world, I mean, we meet in New York, but we could also do a meeting in Miami and then anywhere in the world, and we live digitally. So this is really the best of the community, and it's an amazing community to get the blockchain. I mean, the intelligence and the creativity that is put in this sector is just phenomenal. It's incredible, and I'm really excited every day to go and start working on it, because it's every day you learn new things, new stuff. You see new protocol, you see new ideas, new type of developments. And it's going to revolutionize everything. It's already happening, but in the coming years, it's only going to increase, which is why I believe our company and mining and the infrastructures that we are setting up, it's set up for Bitcoin mining today, because this is where we can make the most profit, and we are working toward having more Bitcoin on our balance sheet. This is the goal of the company. We want to follow the step of MicroStrategy from a Michael Saylor, for example. But the infrastructures that we are setting up are made for the next decades. I know that every entrepreneur will tell you they have a long-term vision, but this is really what we are doing. And how do we think our business is, how can we be ultra effective in the next 5-10 years and after that, of course. But knowing the next halving is coming, we need to think about that today, and to be able to create services and be the infrastructure and the low level of the infrastructure of the blockchain for any kind of services that will come or continue to be developed in the coming years. It's only going to grow in usage from various protocols.
I agree.
But we're Bitcoin maximalist, of course.
We'll get into that in a different podcast. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I learned a lot. And my last question is this: for the people who want to find out more information about you, about what your company does, how can they do that?
Very simple. You go to ccu.ai. It's our website. From there, because we are a soon listed company, you will be able to access all the information you want on our company. We finished a filing statement, which is 140 pages about us. We have 4 years of audited account from Grant Thornton, so you can look into it and you can really see that everything is legit. All the coins that we are producing are virgins, have never been used before. And this is really the best way for people to get to know us. What we will do, and people will be able to, and they will be able to subscribe for live stream. So is that we are going to do at the end of September, where we will present the company to new investors. We are going to be traded under the ticker name called Sato, obviously for a reference to Satoshi. So it's going to be Sato.v because we are on the TSXV, which is a venture market on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And from there, people will be able to follow us. We also have Twitter. We also have any kind of socials, but really the best and the fastest source to get information about us is ccu.ai.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Jamil. It was a pleasure to be with you.